Hello everyone, today I want to talk about one of the most commonly asked questions on my website, and that quite simply is, how many light kits can you plug together on one USB? And I'm here to tell you that is not the correct question to ask. Here's what I mean by that. There is no possible way for me to tell you how many LED light kits from different manufacturers you can put on one USB plug. And that simply is because I don't have all the different light kits. I don't know their requirements. I don't know how many LEDs is the key word here, they are using in their light kit. Every company, I always tell people it's a general rule of thumb. Most of the lighting companies, they do what I consider to be over illumination on a lot of their light sets. And typically you're going to find that there's at least 20 LEDs in any one kit. So if I was to give you generic information to try and answer that question, I would say no more than 5 kits on one USB plug. And I'm saying that because now we're going to get to the question you should be asking, and that is simply this. How many amps can you have on one USB plug? That, my friends, is the important question. And let me tell you how to get that particular information. First of all, when it comes to all LED lighting, I don't care if you're talking about what, Bricks Max, Brick Loot, My Lights, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Everybody's using a 5-volt system, which is the USB power supply, and everybody is typically using the 805 LED lights. With an 805 LED light on a 5-volt system, you are going to have 0.01 amps of draw for every single LED that is on that circuit. Whereas seen here, I have 2 LEDs for 0.02 amps. So what does that mean? Well, if you have 100 LEDs and you plug all them together and then hook them to one USB plug, you should have 1 amp of draw. And again, that's because I already know that for the general rule of thumb, almost every company is using the 805 LED. Now, I'm coming out with some new products really soon that will totally change the method of madness for that, but I don't want to go into that just yet. So again, the general rule of thumb is going to be 5 LED sets per USB plug. Now, if you're using my magnets, which this is the other very common question people are asking, how many magnets can you have together in a chain? Really, you could have up to 100 if you wanted to. It's not that big of a deal. There's a very, very small amount of resistance that is caused from that magnetic connector, but it's not enough to interfere or cause any problems. The problem, again, going back to what I said earlier, is the number of LEDs. So if you have 5 buildings, each building has 20 LEDs, and between each building, you use 1 magnetic set, and then the very end, you're going to use the USB plug. And you should never have any problems at all. I don't care what type of power supply you're using. But that does bring us to another important question. A lot of people ask me and then send me pictures showing me what they are considering a USB power supply, and it is not a USB power supply. What they are showing me is things like this. This is simply a USB plug adapter. This plug adapter is very common with a lot of your big brand name kits, and I can't stand them, to be perfectly honest, because they're not teaching people the proper way how to use them. But all this plug is this plug allows you to plug multiple USB plugs into one port of a USB power supply. So this is not how you would use the system and the way that I'm explaining it. This is not what you are going to use. You cannot use that. When I say a USB power supply, it has to be like what I use. And again, you can use any brand you want. I will have a link below in the description of this video if you would like to buy the specific brand that I'm using. And what I use is this guy right here. This is the Vanc 10-port USB 3.0 power supply. And let me just real quickly explain why I like this power supply so much. Number one, it is good for 60 watts in total. All 10 ports are 3.0. It has a steel casing around it, and it comes with mounting plates. So if you're like me, which most people are, you have a wooden table that you're putting up your Lego City on. So this can be easily mounted on the underside of your table, so it's easy to hide. And you can simply take an extension cable to different areas of your table to plug in your USB ports to each individual output. And this one power supply is what I use to light my entire city display. It's also what I used to light my previous city display. And let me tell you, that was a lot of LED lights. Since we're talking about power and how much stuff we can plug into a circuit and all that, let's talk about that real quick. Because there's typically, when you're looking at USB power supplies, there's going to be two different styles of power supplies. You're going to either have a 3.0 or you're going to have a 2.0. Or you're going to have, say, a 10-port USB power supply, but two of them will be 3.0 and the rest of them will be the 2.0. And what is important about knowing whether or not it is a 2.0 or a 3.0? Here, let me tell you. With the 2.0, I recommend 1 amp of power. That's why I say my general rule of thumb is no more than 100 LEDs for 1 amp, because most people, or the most common USB power supplies that are out there, are the 2.0 power supplies, which are only good for 1 amp. And with that, I want to make sure that I point out, you can tell the difference between a 2.0 and a 3.0 by the color of the plug port. A 2.0 is always going to be white, and a 3.0 should be blue in color. Now, let me explain the difference of the 2.0 and the 3.0. With the 3.0, you can have 1.5 amps. So with 1.5 amps, you can actually have 150 LEDs plugged together and plugged into that port, which greatly increases the number of buildings, sets, LEDs, that you can have plugged into that one port. Now, real quickly, everything that I'm discussing and all the information that I'm giving to you is my personal general rule of thumb to keep you from having any problems. Because to give you the real numbers, and I really don't like to do this because I don't like people to push the limits. The real numbers with a 2.0, you can actually usually do about 2 amps on one plug. And the real amperage for a 3.0 is usually around up to 5 amps. But it depends on the manufacturer, depends on the brand, depends on the watts of the unit and all that. And again, that's why I say follow my rule of thumb. With a 2.0, no more than 100 LEDs per plug. And with a 3.0, no more than 150 LEDs per plug. And you should never, ever have any type of power problem powering up your amazing Lego cities.